Hello Periscope people. So I'm going to be sharing with you today, let me just wiggle my camera a little bit so that everything that should be in shot is. I'm going to be sharing with you today some techniques for overcoming negative experiences. And when I say techniques, what I've devised for you is a very simple questioning process. So these are questions that you can apply to yourself when bad stuff happens. I'm not going to go into the specifics of what that bad stuff might be. Obviously, if you've had a deeply traumatic experience, this is just going to skim the surface and not necessarily be entirely appropriate. But just day-to-day negative things, the stuff that kind of shows up in life and can cause us some aggravation, things that we might end up hanging on to for potentially a little bit too long, longer than we perhaps should do. So we just want to be able to move past those things so that we can start to take negative situations and actually take something positive from them. And that can be quite a challenge for us as human beings because we do have a tendency to cling on to the negative stuff. We tend to be quite driven by bad news more so than we might be by good news, for example. And that's because at a kind of basic human level, we're more driven by pain than pleasure. So we have a tendency to seek out that which we should avoid in the future rather than that which we should be moving towards. Hi everyone. Did you say cling on? No, I didn't. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you some questions that I found to be particularly useful when I'm working with clients on a one-to-one. Because very often they'll come in and they'll say, actually, there was this thing that happened and that's the cause of the challenges that I've got in my life right now. And this little framework of questions here is just really simple and easy to apply, and it just starts to shift things in the right direction. What we want people to be able to do is to have different options available to them in terms of how they think about negative stuff as they move forward in the future. And ultimately, what we're really seeking is we like to seek out a sense of control. The interesting thing is for people who feel in control, they don't walk around all day saying, wow, I feel so in control today, because they're just doing it. It's not an issue for them. It's only when we feel out of control that that word starts coming up in our language and we start thinking about the fact that we haven't got it. So this framework of questions can help us to have more options about how we think. And when we have more options about how we think, that opens up a greater sense of control for us. So I'm going to run through these with you, but also give you some finer distinction on what they are and how these can be useful. Hi. All right, so the first one, very simple. What is the silver lining to this cloud? So whatever the situation is, and it's up to you how you choose to understand that question, because different people understand that question in slightly different ways. So what is the silver lining? i.e., is there something good that can be taken from this scenario at some level? Is there some way of us being able to notice something positive about this? The following questions then take us down into a little bit more detail. So the next one is, what can you learn? Now, typically when something negative happens for us, it's really simple to just see it as a negative situation, particularly in the early stages. If we want to pull ourselves out of that quicker, then one of the best things we can do is start thinking, is there a learning opportunity in here? Now, the learning opportunity might not be immediate, it might be one for the future. So it might be something that, I haven't got what I need from it right now, but, maybe later on there will be an opportunity for me to perhaps grow from this or develop a different way of thinking. Next one, what did this prevent? Now, that's a trickier one to think through, because what we're saying then is actually having lost out or having had this negative thing happen to me, maybe that's prevented something even worse from happening in the future. So let's say it's a relationship breakup. And, everyone goes through a degree of pain and discomfort when that happens. But if you look back on that and say, okay, well, having had that breakup scenario or that rejection, What did that prevent? Well, maybe it prevented you from being in a relationship or being rejected from someone who ultimately it would never have worked out well with in the meantime or in the future anyway. So thinking about moving forwards in the future, and actually maybe there was an opportunity in here, can also help us to feel more positive about things. Next one. How can this situation help you or others? Now, this is a really useful question where we're looking at scenarios that have been particularly uncomfortable, perhaps partly traumatic for people as well. Because very often we can't move ourselves forward, but if we think about how we're able to help other people, we're very often able and willing to do more for other people than we would do for ourselves. Just excuse the Ninos going by. We're just down the road from an ambulance and fire engine station, so we get these going all day. So yeah, when we think about how can I help others as a result of this situation, it moves us beyond ourselves, which gives us a bigger potential for growth. So someone who's been through perhaps a situation like bullying and is still perhaps feeling the anxiety, the hurt or the distrust that went with that, if they start thinking, how can I take what's happened in this scenario and apply this to helping other people in the future, that gives them a benefit of growth, but it actually starts turning a very negative situation into something much more positive. All right, how could this be an opportunity? So maybe there is either a learning opportunity or maybe there's some other kind of opportunity that comes out of this. So a very long time ago, before I was using any of the NLP or hypnosis type stuff, I was in a situation where I was working in a full-time job. And in that full-time job, I wasn't particularly happy and I became quite unwell. And the unwellness seemed like a very negative situation at that particular point in time. But actually, having to be signed off sick and spend that time convalescing, what happened was I started exploring into other learning opportunities so I could take my career off in a completely different direction in the future. So although I had this very negative situation of being unwell, I also had an opportunity that came out of it because I was able to capitalize on what that had given me to be able to do something different with my life. So that's what we're saying when we talk about, is there an opportunity that could be had from this negative situation? How will this make you stronger? So if nothing else, if we're not going to learn from the opportunity, we're not going to see it as an opportunity perhaps, it will of course, all these little tests that come up in life, they do prepare you for other things. And let's face it, life doesn't stop showing up, does it? So, you know, there's always going to be challenges in the future. Dealing with the challenges that you have right now or challenges from the past and overcoming them in the best possible way prepares you for the future. And, you know, when something like that that's similar comes along again, you'll be able to react to it faster, overcome it quicker, and spend less time and maybe even have less of a tendency to become as badly affected by those sorts of situations again. What have we got next? How can I think about this in a balanced way? Now this one, thinking about things in a balanced way, this one I get from the world of CBT. Now that comes, that's cognitive behavior therapy. It's a way of using and taking control of your emotions and your thoughts by thinking things through in a set kind of sequence of different methodologies that fall under the umbrella of CBT. So in terms of how I understood CBT, because I was already trained in NLP when I did my CBT training, so lots of it seemed very familiar, but the one thing that I really took from CBT that really struck me was this idea about balanced thinking. From the NLP world, which is very personal development based, there is a tendency for us to think very positively about things, you know, to always look on the bright side of life. And that's great, but it's not always particularly realistic. However, in CBT, when we start looking at balanced thinking, what happens in balanced thinking is you actually weigh up the pros and the cons. So you say, okay, well, what's good about this? what's bad about this, and now what's realistic. So thinking in a balanced way allows us to access a more realistic framework. So we could be saying, okay, this bad things happened, what was bad about it? This bad things happened, what are the good things that can come out of it? And then pulling together some kind of middle ground to be able to move forward from there. So that's what balanced thinking is about. And then the final one that we have there is the I don't know yet. I don't know what good thing is going to come from this negative scenario yet, but I do trust in the future, and I do trust that ultimately at some stage in the future I will look back on this and think, actually, maybe there was something positive to come out of it. So even if you're not able to look at a negative situation right now and take some silver lining from it, if you can trust that at some stage in the future you will, then that in itself frees up a great deal of the stuckness that comes from a negative scenario. So I don't know yet what's good, but I trust in the future something positive will come out as a result of this. So this particular video will be going on our YouTube channel if you want a rerun of it. So it's youtube.com/peoplebuilding. In addition, we're now transcribing all of those videos. So all of this content you can get in a typed up version on the People Building blog. So if you want access to those questions for yourselves so that you can just keep them in your back pocket and run through them every now and again, you'll be able to grab them off of the People Building blog. Or if you just ping us over an email, we'll get them typed up and sent them over to you straight away. So the email address is Gemma, Gemma, @peoplebuilding.co.uk. There will be no video next Monday because I have NLP for Kids commitments on the second Monday of the month. I will be mentoring the team, so I'll be sharing a video with them instead. But I will speak to you guys in 2 weeks' time and sharing some more tips and hints around NLP when I speak to you then.